Welcome to From Loneliness to Overflow with Matina. I'm your host, a holistic healing coach, divorce recovery coach, and a passionate advocate for personal growth and your guide on the journey to healing. This podcast is for those who are struggling with the feelings of loneliness, disconnection, feeling stuck, and who are ready to discover their inner potential and live a life overflowing with love and connection. Inside, we are going to explore the path from pain to transformation, bridging the gap between loneliness and abundance through heartfelt conversation, spirituality, energy work, and self-awareness. So let's get started on this soulful journey together. Welcome to another From Loneliness to Overflow with Matina, a conversation with Trudy that I'm having today, really talking about the transformational journey and of self-love and spirituality. Our mission is simple: to inspire and empower you to embrace healing, unlocking your inner potential, and the life of overflow, where there's so much love, so much purpose, and so much just inspired action that you are stepping into. And we're going to do that one heartfelt conversation at a time, where you're going to hear the personal journey from Trudy, how she went into bridging the gap from between loneliness and abundance in her life. Welcome, Trudy.
Thank you so much, Matina. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure having you. So before we step into the conversation of really what we are going to be unpacking about your journey, I really would love for you to introduce yourself. What do you do in this beautiful world, and how do you choose to show up right now?
Thank you. Well, I'm going to just come out the gate and say I am an uncaged woman.
Ooh.
And I have not always been. And my journey has been like this evolution, because I began as I heard about this thing called coaching back in 2010. And at the time I owned a day spa, and I was in a treatment room as an esthetician and a massage therapist. And I just knew that people talked to me all day. And I heard about life coach, and I thought, oh, what's that? I want to do that. So I got trained, and then I got trained some more, because it was that constant, I need this. And it led me towards really like spiritual life coaching from there. And so I started coaching beauty professionals on business. But I hired my first coach in 2015.
Okay.
And it was one of those big quantum leaps where it's like, for 5 years, I got all this training, but I never hired a coach. And then I hired a coach, and it was a stretch. And on our first meeting, she's like, tell me about you. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your dreams. And it was love. It was about relationships. It was about love. She goes, why aren't you a love coach? And I thought, like, it had never occurred to me. In my life, I felt like I knew what not to do when it came to love.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never going to coach somebody on what to do when it came to love.
Okay.
The universe had better ideas and led me, and I followed. And it was like, oh, I'm not supposed to teach people about it's certainly part of the equation, like romantic love. I'm supposed to teach them about universal love. I'm supposed to talk about the matter that we're made of, that we come from love, we return to love, we are love, the physical manifestation of love in human form, and consciously living your life from that space. So it's been this evolution. And then from that, I created Uncaged Woman, because I kept running into women that were like, there's more. I know there's more. I just don't know how to put my finger on it. I don't know how to find it. And what it came down to was self-love and authenticity. And so that what led me to now.
Wow. There's so much I can unpack already with everything that you shared, including how you were not aware of course, I'm going to be a love coach. That aha moment right there, that pivotal moment of recognizing of what you do and the value that you bring and how you can help others, getting to a place where they're like, oh, that's what love is. And it's different than just the romantic love that we all know about.
Yes.
All want and crave.
And we do, we're hardwired for it, right? But we're not taught about what it really is. So if you pull a book off a shelf about love, it's shifting. It is shifting. I have to admit that. But traditionally in the last 10, 20, 30 years, if you pull a book off the shelf about love, it's going to be about that romantic love. It's going to be about who you need to become, who you need to be, what you need to do. Like it's something to get. It's something outside of you. It's something that you have to earn, be good enough for. You have to get, you have to chameleon. You have to, how to get a man to love you, how to get a woman to fall in love with you, how to do this, how to do that. Instead of this concept that says love is actually who we are. It is what we're made of. And that when we can like align with that, we become completely magnetic to it. Like it's just a law of the universe. And so then, and I say like my tagline for Uncaged Woman is uncaged women do not chase, they attract.
Wow.
And that's in all areas of life, romantic love, abundance, career choices, the people we hang out with, the relationships we attract. We feel it, we're magnetic to it because, and we've all felt it. We go to the grocery store and we're in a really funky, bad mood and we almost repel people on purpose or consciously, but there's a wide berth, no eye contact and versus we're in a great mood. Or let's talk about romantic love. What about when you fall in love? Those like first few months when you fall in love and you're like radiating and you walk in and all of a sudden you're a magnet to all sorts of attention.
Yes.
Because that people are like, I want what she's having. Like you look radiant. You look beautiful. Oh, you look so nice today. Oh, I love your shoes. Oh, your hair looks so nice. We are like radiating this like magnetism. And it's not just to the opposite sex. It's to like all people, all humans, because the love in them is like drawn to the love in you. And it's like,
yes.
Yeah.
It's not conditional at all. It's completely flowing.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So one question that is really percolating in my mind, and I've seen this with so many coaches, whenever we step into doing the path that we are shown or the journey that we go on, there is always a personal journey and a personal pain point that we have gone through before we even consider offering this type of work to others. So I really want to go into your personal story, Trudy, of how you felt about being caged to getting to that journey of being uncaged, because that is really something, I think that word holds a lot of meaning and weight in your journey. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that is what the sense that I'm getting. So tell me more about who was Trudy before she was uncaged and who is Trudy now?
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to try to do the short version of this. But as with anyone, and it's so important to realize this, our stories begin with our birth. I mean, they really do begin in the womb because on a cellular energetic level, that's when we start accumulating information. We start building our stories. And so for me, I was adopted and my biological mom hid the entire pregnancy. Nobody knew about me. And then she put me up for adoption. And then I was adopted into a household that was very provisional. Like I didn't want for anything, but my parents were not warm and fuzzy. There was never an I love you. And so from a very young age, my dad was very traditional. And it was that a woman is to find a husband to survive. So I was given these stories. I created some of the stories like not worthiness, unwanted, not lovable, abandonment, rejection.
Yeah.
And then with the adoption, it was like, okay, maybe I am wanted, but am I good enough? And being told the only way that I would survive in this lifetime is to find love. Not just love. It was actually, let me rephrase that. I wasn't taught to find love. I was taught to find a husband.
Yeah.
Love was like, had really nothing to do with it. Could he provide? Would he accept me? Would he love me? That was the end game. So I set out with this story. We all have our own like foundation of, okay, I don't feel worthy. I'm afraid of rejection and abandonment. I know that I have to have a husband to survive. So I better start looking there. I wasn't told and didn't experience what love really was. I had no spiritual upbringing, no religious upbringing. There was no cornerstone. There was no touchstone for me. So it was sort of being out in the middle of like like I had this analogy given to me yesterday. I loved it. Like if you're told you've got to find the Sahara Desert, that's your quest. You've got to go find the Sahara Desert. And here's a map of Europe. Go get it.
Good luck.
Like, you're not even on the same continent. Like, how in the hell are you supposed to find it?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, okay, so what happened is absolute anxious attachment style. Like, if you leave me, I will die. Because that's that cellular memory from being an infant that if you're rejected, you and abandoned, like you likely won't survive, compiled with the other stories that I started to build. So when I was old enough to start thinking about romantic love, I had no idea what it looked like. I had no idea what it was. And it was like, who do I need to become to get you to love me? And God forbid if you leave me, because that's going to trigger everything. So it was this absolute, almost like a feeding frenzy, like a desperation to find love.
Yeah.
And this feeling that says I cannot be alone, because alone equals a lack of survival. And so going through one relationship after another, several toxic relationships and toxic marriages, divorces, very painful, and getting to a point where a terror of being alone, like endings, breakups, like that was very terrifying. So what ended up happening for me, we all have our breakthrough moment, right? When the universe steps in, divine intervention. So mine happened a couple of times. First, when I was married, and I just got this very clear audio, like I heard this enough. And it was like, that was my first little tiny introduction to self-love and self-preservation, and like a fight from deep within that said, I can do this. And so I left that marriage and I was actually alone for a stretch. And it was so scary. And it was like, okay, that was the beginning of self-love though, self-soothing. What do I do? And then I got into a relationship. And it felt soulmate to me. Like it felt like a recognition to me, like, oh my gosh, there you are. And I poured everything into him and I put him on this huge pedestal. And again, I was still dealing with things that needed to heal that I had blinders on. Like I couldn't see what you can't see what you can't see. And then he passed away in a tragic accident. In a drowning accident. He was in Texas, I was in California, and it was just seriously could be a movie, because it's like the whole, you send the text in the morning, good morning, and I was scheduled to fly out in just a few days, and then we were scheduled to go to Cabo together, and he never answered my text. And it was just like the rug got pulled out. What happened is that I was forced to face the thing that I was the most afraid of in life, which was being alone. Because for me, rebounding into another relationship, which is what I would have typically done after a breakup, with that void, right? With that gap, fill it, find another one, fill it. With a death, that wasn't an option for me. There was no filling that void with someone else. First of all, there was just no possibility. Like my heart was captured. I didn't have that to give. But second of all, I just that was an absolute wound inside of me that needed to be filled by me. And so I learned how to self-nurture at a degree never before. I learned how to go right into the wound to heal it. I learned how to face the darkest fear. I learned that grief can be beautiful as well as excruciatingly painful. I learned that I still had a connection with him, that love never dies, just people do. Our human form, we just transition. He spoke to me. He was near me. I could feel him sitting next to me. I could smell him. He was with me. He's still with me. It's like the love story didn't die, but I learned how to love me. And in that process, I transformed, like I'm talking quantum leap growth in the last 3 years, more growth in the last 3 years than I'd experienced in the first 55 years of my life.
Oh, wow.
So when we talk about collapsing time or time jumping or quantum leaps, it's like, whoa, it can happen in a very, very quickly when you're ready for it and when you start to align. And sometimes we align because the universe, God, divine intervention steps in and says, okay. And one of the first messages I got from him on the other side was, this is a sacred contract. Like for both of us, this is a deep generational healing for both of us. A cycle's been broken. And so this was all intended. And to me, that was both good news and bad. Because on one hand, I was like, no, I don't want this lesson. And on the other hand, it was, wow, I'm so grateful for this lesson. And that's where Uncaged Woman was completely born, from a sense of digging so far deep and filling that void myself with self-love. And then becoming uncaged was like, whoa, it was profound in what I gave up. I gave up the anxious attachment. I gave up the need to have a partner to experience love. I gave up the fear of the in-between, from where I want to be and where I am to where I want to be. There's a void. So much transformation and growth happens in the void, but we're terrified of it. So we do anything, food, we do, sex, we do alcohol, we do other relationships, we do anything not to feel it.
Yeah.
And so when we step straight into it, it's actually not as scary as we think. And we can be our own best friend. And then we partner with the divine, right? We have a whole team of angels and guides. And now I have Jackson as a guide. So there's so much more. There's so much more available to us. And it's all loving. And so that was, to me, it was like, okay, Uncaged Woman was born because I knew I wasn't alone. I knew there were other women that were like just dying inside because they weren't being true to themselves. They weren't living authentically. They weren't speaking their truth. They weren't standing out. They weren't being bold. They were being oppressed, and they wanted to just break wide open and break free.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So much pain and grief that you had to go through to go from your loneliness moments, because you had many of them, into your overflow moment where love is more than we can see. It's more than we can sense. It's more than we could ever imagine in our lives. It just is.
And it's always there.
Yes.
That was what was such a profound experience for me, was the recognition that said, oh, it's not something out there that I have to get.
Someone else needs to give it to me.
It came from within. Even the love I felt for him originated inside of me for me to give it. So it never came from him. It always came from me. And so even his death couldn't take it away. And that was huge, because then it was like, wow, oh, okay. How do I want to live life from this moment forward? What does living a life as an uncaged woman look like? What does it feel like? Who am I really? Dumping all those stories and limiting beliefs. I have to have a husband. I have to have this. I have to have that. Dropping it all. What does that look like? Now what can I create? And whoa, energetically, that's such a shift. What can we create today to the universe? What do you want to do today? And it's playful and it's fun and it's exciting. And it's like you open it up. There's no glass ceiling.
It becomes this childlike energy of curiosity and play. Yes. Versus the adult-like manners of how some things need to be, how they need to pan out, how we need to show up in ways, what is accepted, what's not accepted. But I want you to take us back into a specific moment in time where you made that shift. You made that conscious shift of firstly fearing what's on the other side. Can I handle it? Will I be okay? Do I really want to unpack the feeling of unworthiness, the feeling of, but I need this to feel and make it in this world? Take us to a time where you mentioned one of the times, actually. You mentioned when you audibly heard enough. So walk the listeners through, after hearing that word enough. What shifted in you? What were the thought patterns that allowed you actually to go from, this is not the way that I want to live, to, I'm going to be okay? Because there was a period of time where you were alone before you embraced the journey with Jackson. So how did you go into that?
Before we continue, I would like to offer you something special. If you desire to deeper and more meaningful connections in your life, and you're looking to improve your relationships with yourself and others, it's time to make a change. I'm inviting you to join our Deepening Connections through Meditation group. Imagine improving your relationships through meditations that foster understanding and growth. Check out matinasing.com/meditation for more details and use the code GROWTH for an exclusive discount. Now let's get back to our soulful conversation, helping you on your journey of self-awareness and connection.
There was something very deep within it. I would call it self-preservation. And there was also a piece of this where I questioned my thoughts. Like it occurred to me sort of, and I believe this was a very divine intervention. The same voice, the same energy source that said enough was also the same source that said, is that true about the stories that I'd been telling myself? Is it true you need a husband to survive? Is it true that you won't be okay alone? Is it true? It was like, whoa. Everything just cracked wide open in that moment because there was a strength from within that said, it's not true. I'm making it all up and I can make up whatever I want. If it's all stories and it's all thought and I'm creating it, I have the power to change it in a moment. And it was just like, I'm changing it. And it was like, what does my life look like when I drop that story? What does my life look like when I don't need to have a husband? I can choose to, but I don't need to. What does it look like when I step into my power? And when the stories I tell myself are supportive of what I want to become? What kind of woman do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to live? What stories are supportive to that? Because so often, we hear the voice, I call it mean girl, and she's like, are you kidding me right now? You can't, no, it's going to fail. You're not going to be able to do it. You are, right? It's like, oh my gosh, no, which like, thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for loving me. And no, thank you. Like, I don't need to hear that anymore. It's that same voice that I do a lot of work with my clients where we do mirror work and we learn to really look into the mirror and see what we love. I call it like falling in love with you when you go out to dinner with like, let's say second, third, fourth date. And it's going somewhere, but it's still really the beginning. And you've got those like butterflies in your tummy and you're like, oh, this person is something special. This is a connection. I'm liking this. And you're looking at that human sitting next to you. And what are you looking for? What do we say to ourselves? Oh my God, the sound of their voice is just so beautiful. I love the color of their eyes. I love their hair. I love their skin tone. We are like in it big and we are falling more and more. We can all feel it. Anybody that's ever fallen in love, we're digging for gold. We are looking for the good. It's lovable. We can do that to ourselves. So that's part of that journey with the enough. Yes. I stopped letting mean girl run the show and I questioned my thinking and I shifted it. When I looked in the mirror, I was like, what do I love? What do I love? It's like, okay, start with my heart. Like it was hard for me to go with the external because I was like, oh, you've got to lose weight. You've got to do this, you got, you're aging. Mean girl was really there attacking my love for myself, but she couldn't attack my heart. I was like, I knew I had a good heart. I knew I had a purpose. I knew. So it's like, okay, started there. Oh, I love my heart. I love that I'm kind. I love that I love kids and animals and that I want to help people. And I just started to build a new foundation and new stories of worthiness, of lovability. And I had to start with me. Like I see my value and my worth. And then again, like we talked about the grocery store, I started to be more magnetic to that. So I started to draw in more people that were in alignment with that, whether it was other coaches, whether it was clients, whether it was friendships, because I didn't date for a while. I got divorced and then I was like, I'm not going to fill that void this way. I'm going to fill it by going for walks in the park with me, for going to the store and buying myself a beautiful bouquet of flowers, by nurturing myself. And then it's like, so that's really how the journey unfolded for me and what I did, the steps that I took.
So profoundly beautiful. And this is exactly the power of shifting the story and asking ourselves quality questions.
Absolutely. It's key.
And also your journey really identifies how so many of us, and me included, I'm not excluding myself in this at all. We create these narratives and stories and ways of being and shouldn't and couldn't and all of those things that when we don't fulfill the need of it, that we think like, oh my God, this fell through the tracks because I did not do this, or I am not showing up like that, or I this and the other.
Yeah.
Or the other part is also very true. It didn't happen because they, this, that, boom. Like we start pointing fingers and stories around why someone else was wrong, not being ready to embrace how we feel truly inside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey that you're sharing right now, Trudy, is really about from this woman, not girl, this woman, the girl story was, I'm unworthy. Holding on to that story of a little girl who probably is 4 or 5.
Yes, you're right.
To being an adult woman, having gone through relationships and marriages, and still holding on to that 5-year-old thought, to then becoming so hyper aware of the one thing that she was ignoring and suppressing and pushing away in her life, and putting such a quality question of what it would be like to not have that be true.
Yes.
And seeing your life significantly change once that question was asked, once that decision was made, and once you chose to show up in like, no, I'm going to love myself more. I love the mirror exercise. We all should do it. We all can learn so much about ourselves when we look ourselves into the eye and when we show up with questions and answers that we know somewhere to be true, but we never allow ourselves to say it, specifically the good things. We are easily saying the bad things and the mean girl is coming out and the mean girl is on her goal of hitting the 80% quota of, okay, I need to be negative and I need to tell her this was not done, that wasn't done, this is not right, that's not right, versus I love my life.
Yeah.
I love who I am in my heart. I love the fact that I choose to be kind. I love the fact that I choose to help others. And that means something. That stands for something. And I don't need to make that wrong because it wasn't received in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And the uncaging, I love that word uncaged right now because it signifies so much of your own journey of being caged into that thought of a 5-year-old girl, into the beautiful woman and presence that you have right now in choosing to believe into yourself and choosing that the love is unconditional in you and how it's unconditional in every single one of us.
Yes. Yes. I often say, and it's kind of funny, but it's like us searching for love is like a fish looking for water.
It's true. So true.
Only it's even deeper than that because it's actually what we're made of. Like the fish aren't made of the water. They're completely surrounded by it, but still external. Like love is actually, that's the energy that we're made of. That's what we're manifested from, in my opinion. It's like we are.
I agree.
Love made manifest or incarnate into human. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes. Yes.
And we get it backwards and we're taught it backwards because everything, all those stories, all those limiting beliefs were taught from probably pretty well-meaning adults, and they were taught that from probably pretty well-meaning adults, and it gets passed on and it gets fueled sometimes. I don't know if anybody here has read the book When Women Were Dragons. Have you heard of that book yet?
No.
It's incredible. It's a great book. It's fantasy and it's so much fun. But it's this idea that says that, and this can be anyone. Like I have a very good friend who is a minister, but he used to be a Catholic priest and now he is a unity minister and he is a gay man. And the oppression, the judgment, the lack of acceptance, the stories, the trying to fit in for so much of his lifetime, before he finally was free to just say, this is who I truly am and find the love of his life and get married and like live this life of joy because he accepted who he was. So this isn't just about women. This is like an uncaging of who's been oppressed or dimmed or told that they're not right. Their way of thinking, their way of being isn't right in this world. So When Women Were Dragons, it's the oppression of women, primarily like in the 40s and 50s. And that there's a great dragony where all these women transform into dragons in this one big, huge, like on this day, because it's the breaking free. It's an uncaging where we just go enough. And who am I really? And the dragon represents like our authentic being, and we're fierce. It's like there's a beautiful, soft, feminine side of every single one of us. That's the woman nursing her baby.
Mm-hmm.
That visual, right? So tender, so beautiful. And then there's the mama bear. And when I talk about that and I say that, everyone can identify with that. Everyone can lean into the energy of the soft, the caring, the nurturing, the tender, and everybody goes, oh, when I say mama bear, they know what they're up against. And that's in each one of us. But that's, to me, the uncaged woman. She's both. She gets to be both. She gets to be tender and feminine and peaceful and like sublime. And then on the other side of that, she gets to be like the warrior. She gets to be fierce in who she is and what she stands for. And she gets to embrace it and love it. And you know what? If somebody else doesn't like it, that's their problem.
I love it. I love so much of the story that you said. And one thing I'm going to go back to what you also mentioned was like the suppressing from society and the norms, but also the suppressing from our internal. This is the duality that you shared with your own personal experience, but also through this story, how we can be and are suppressed in many different ways of society's norms. But then there becomes this time to uncage yourself and to show up as who you are. The journey from loneliness to being an overflow of love and light and source of energy that others just gravitate towards, because there's something so beautifully, unconditionally expressing itself right now that others are like, wow, how did you do that? So tell me more, Trudy, about why is it important for you to help others on their journey right now of being uncaged?
I believe that every woman, and more than women, I've had men say to me, why did you do Uncaged Woman? Why couldn't you have just left it as Uncaged so that we can be a part of it too? I've heard that from more than one man. But I feel like there's a sisterhood, right? In that support and that love of being an uncaged woman, and that women identify with it. They hear it. They hear that my description of uncaged woman, and something sparks inside of them. Something comes alive, but they either might not have been aware of it. Like, they weren't quite, it's sort of like when you don't realize you're hungry till you take that first bite and then you're like ravenous. They don't know. Because they don't realize they do know there's something. It's like there's a general sense of there's something more. I want more, or a longing to create something. A lot of women have like a desire. I want to write a book, or I want to pursue my art, or I want to find the love of my life and experience like a soul-centered connection, conscious coupling. Like they're longing for something, but they're not sure what it is.
Yeah.
So then when they hear what Uncaged Woman is, something comes alive and they go, oh, maybe that's it. I want that. How do I get that? So for me, being able to articulate that, looking back over the steps, talking to hundreds of women, coaching women, it was easy to see like a sort of a blueprint unfold, like a yellow brick road, like it starts with self-love. It starts with questioning our thoughts. It starts with understanding that love isn't something outside of us. And it was like, it just sort of unfolded, like, and then another step, and then another, and then another. And it just was like, whoa, before I knew it, I had women working with me that were just like doing the thing or the things that they had dreamt about for so long, and coming alive and like falling in love with their lives and being so grateful and full of joy, like hopping out of bed in the morning. And then for many of them, finding that or rekindling that deep relational love, like falling in love romantically, because it was a direct result from being radiant and being uncaged. And then they would attract a partner that loved them for who they were, not who they became, but who they were.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful and powerful. I'm so excited for every single person that you get to touch with your work and how you show up with them. And also, I'm so grateful for you to sharing how your journey was. From going from loneliness to overflow, from going from being caged in that one thought of the 5-year-old to being the beautiful soul that you are right now, helping others, feeling of how it means and what it means to love. What it means to show up, what it means to feel deeply and humbly into themselves first before they show up in this world. Oh, thank you for sharing all of your beautiful work that you do. I do have one more question for you, and this is a tradition that I have really been so blessed to learn about and do in the podcast is our previous guest gets to ask the next guest a question. I'm going to repeat the question to you and to you to answer it in the way that you see fit. So the question that I have is, when it came to your moment of loneliness, what advice would you give the person that is experiencing their moment of loneliness?
Don't fear it.
Oof.
Just don't fear it so much. Understand that even the fear is just a thought. It's just an illusion. And that there's a sacredness in the loneliness. There's a deep connection waiting for you in the void, in the loneliness. Like lean into it, feel it, allow yourself to embrace it and be embraced by it. Let it hold you. Let it support you. Let it become a friend. It's giving me goosebumps all over my body because we're so afraid of it, like it's a void, like it's a bottomless pit, but it's not. Think of it more like a cocoon. Think of it more like a place to do the metamorphosis, to go in the caterpillar and to come out the butterfly. Think of it as a safe space, not one to be like feared or filled up prematurely. Like allow the process because it's more beautiful than anything you could ever imagine.
That's so powerful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for your insights, your story, your authenticity, as well as your beautiful way of teaching everyone how love is not a source outside or external, but it's a source internally. And we are indeed that fish that doesn't need to seek for water or love. It's already in us. Mm-hmm. And we get to breathe that love that we have within us outside and show up in the world that we only know how to do. Because no two women, no two men, or no two human beings are alike. So thank you again so much, Trudy. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Oh, you're so very welcome. To the listener, before we end this podcast today, Trudy, please let them know where they can find you if they feel inspired to reach out to you.
So the easiest way is just my website. It's trudystoner.com. And so I would say just come into my world, or on Facebook, Uncaged Woman is a group
awesome.
to join.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your story. And it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope this episode has helped you to feel less alone in finding tools towards a life which is overflowing with love and purpose. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to reach more individuals who are seeking healing and personal growth just like you. And don't forget to take a screenshot and share your aha moments on your Instagram stories and tag me, Matina. See you next week. Take care.